Hello everyone and welcome to my studio. My name is Kristen Olson Stone. I'm a full-time artist and an avid watercolor sketcher. Today I'd like to introduce you to a couple of new pens I purchased and just talk to you a little bit about drawing with ink and watercolor. So this is a sketch I did a few months ago, and you can really see the ink lines in the clouds, but looking at this painting, you can tell that it's mostly about the watercolor painting. And as a painter, most of my sketches are very painterly. This is the pen that I used to do this sketch, and it's a TWSBI Diamond 580 pen. It's a refillable ink pen, and it has an F nib. F is for a fine point. So they also come in extra fine, broad, and there's other sizes. I think there's a medium as well. But I really prefer the fine ink and or the fine nib. And you can see that the line is very consistent. It's the same width, and no matter how I turn the pen, in other words, whatever my angle to the paper is, it's consistently the same width of line. But I like the consistency of it. I also like that this pen holds a lot of ink. This is another drawing that I did, another watercolor sketch, where you don't see the ink lines as much. You see them in a couple of places here where it's a little bit lighter. And I have kind of a wiggly wobbly, very sketchy style of drawing and painting. And so I definitely want the ink work to be a part of my overall painting. But sometimes it's neat to have different pens and to explore line work. So I recently purchased these two pens. These are Sailor pens. They're made in Japan, and they're called Fude pens. So they each have a different nib, but it's called a Fude nib. And if you can see it here, you can see that it's bent. So this one is a 55-degree angle nib, and this has a thicker line than this one, which has the 40-degree nib. I would say that the 40-degree nib is a little bit closer to the TWSBI pen that I'm used to using with the fine point. So I'll draw a line with this pen, and I have the flat part of the nib touching the paper, and it will make the thickest line at this angle. So I'm resting my hand on the paper, and the pen is not too perpendicular, it's more at a parallel angle to the paper. Now if I turn it more perpendicular, you'll see the width of the line becomes much thinner. So this is the same pen making a thick line and a thin line, and of course this would be something in between. So the more I angle the pen down, the back of the pen down towards the paper, the thicker the line, and the more it's perpendicular, the thinner the line. So compare that to the TWSBI pen. If I hold the TWSBI pen like this, I get this width line. If I hold it more perpendicular, I get the same line. If I'm really parallel, I get the same line. So it's consistent, which is great. And like I said, I love this pen, but I am having fun with these Fude pens. So here is the 55-degree angle. This one is thicker even than the 40-degree nib. Now I do notice sometimes with this paper, this is textured watercolor paper, it does skip a little bit over the texture, this thicker one. But that's kind of interesting too, you know, to have the line have a little bit of texture. So that is about as thick as it'll go. Now if I'm a little less parallel, the line gets thinner, more perpendicular, thinner still, really perpendicular, really thin. So all these lines are made with one pen, and they look like they could have been made with 3 different pens. So that's what's really neat about these Fude pens. And so when you think about drawing something like a house, for instance, I'll just draw a couple of simple shapes. So I'll make a dot for the top of the roof, and I want to swing that down. And then maybe I want to have a thin line on one side and a thick line on the other. and some bushes. And a little Italian cypress tree coming out of the side. You see how it has a really nice artistic feeling about it. Now, if you were to draw with these pens on really smooth paper, they don't skip and have this texture too much, but it almost has the look of like one of those pens, like a quill pen that you would dip in ink and then write for a while and then have to redip it. But you can really get some nice lines with this pen. So it's also fun for texture. So let's say I wanted to draw a person walking a dog with this pen. So here's the circle for the head. And maybe they're looking down, some hair. That's the leash. And this person's wearing a jacket. There's one knee. And one leg. And we'll draw a little dog. So this is a pretty scribbly drawing, but I'm really doing this to just demonstrate the wonderful line work that I can get with this pen. So maybe if I wanted to do some shading, I can draw some lines like that, and then maybe I want to do some shading on the back leg, so I'll draw a couple of shadows. Now if I were to do that same drawing with the 55-degree nib, I'll just repeat it here and you can see the difference. I think probably the 40-degree nib is easier to start out with, but if you practice and you get used to the thin and thick lines of the 55, you might really enjoy that more. Or you may just like the consistent thin lines of one of those TWSBI pens. Like I said before, my artwork is more about the painting than it is the drawing, but I do draw in ink because when I draw in pencil first and then I cover the pencil with ink once I'm happy with my composition. But I definitely like the sketchy look of the ink, and I like to have the lines incorporated into my artwork. And so having some more interesting ink lines might really enhance it. So you can see that this one is a little bit harder to control the thickness of the ink that comes out, thickness of the line. I'll make the leash a little bit thicker. So I did one final drawing with my TWSBI pen, and that way you can compare it to how the line looks compared to the Sailor Fude 40 and 55-degree pens. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my channel, like this video, and leave a comment. Happy sketching!